Hey everyone, Mike here at Ops Factory, and in this video we're looking at Super Wish Lists Season 1, Episode 2. Episode 2 is all about software and deployment architecture. We're going to be looking at how we're going to be writing the software and how we're going to be deploying it with serverless against AWS. So what did I do this sprint? So this sprint I outlined the wiki page in which I defined the direction that we're going to go in with regards to writing the API. We can think of this as a kind of rough sketched map on a napkin that gives us some direction to go in to keep us focused. However, it is malleable, it is changeable. So don't think everything's been set in stone. Don't think that what I've defined in the wiki article is absolutely, it's not gospel. We can change it. Let's take a look at the wiki article and see what I've actually produced. So I've got the wiki article right here for reference. So let's take a look at what it is that I wrote and let's discuss each section. So one of the decisions that had to be made was regarding the structure of the code itself, and I've gone for a root level structure where we have each endpoint is going to be a microservice, so each endpoint is going to be a sub package, and inside of there we're going to have each model which will have a Lambda handler and it will have Docker based HTTP handlers, and everything will be individual. They'll have their own unit tests, and they'll be very easy to update just one component and redeploy that one component. So what are some of the benefits that I listed? So we can test it in isolation. It can be a Lambda function, so it can be deployed via serverless very, very easily rather than having this huge big code base, which you could still deploy as an individual Lambda. However, with Lambda you need individual little functions, actual binaries. If it's one big main package, you just get one big binary, so it's harder to actually deploy the individual endpoints as individual binaries. Each sub-package can even be used in a bigger standalone project as well, and that means that if the HTTP endpoints, you want to implement them somewhere else, or you just want to reuse some of the logic for that particular model somewhere else, you can actually just import it as a module without having to import everything. We've also got create Lambda and standalone binary packages. Now that's also important. So what I want to be able to do, again with the sub-packages, I want to be able to create a Lambda handler so that we can obviously plug it into API gateway and use it in a serverless fashion. But I also want to be able to produce a standalone binary for that module with HTTPS endpoints so that we can deploy it via Docker on Kubernetes or Mesos or even just locally. So the next things we've got on the list is the Go libraries. So this is relatively important. We want to make sure that we're picking sensible libraries that are mature, that are being maintained. I've mostly gone with some of the more popular modules. So to list them off, we've got HTTP router, we've got Viper, Dynamoc, we've got Mock, MOQ, Go tests, and the AWS SDK. The latter one is obviously quite obvious. So HTTP router, or if you're in Britain, where I'm originally from, HTTP router, this is the library which basically builds on top of HTTP/net and gives you a multiplexer, and it gives you routing and gives you all kinds of fancy features. However, it's nice and simple, it's nice and small, and it's very, very fast. Next on the list is Viper. This really is the default choice for configuration. It can read from files, it can read from the environment, it can read from remote APIs. It really is very powerful. I've also listed Dynamoc as well. Now Dynamoc is going to allow us to mock out a DynamoDB layer, which is going to be excellent for testing. It's going to really speed up our tests. Next we've got Mock, which is MOQ. This is awesome. This allows us to take an interface and it will create a mocking struct for us. It allows us to mock individual functions very easily. You'll see how powerful this is when combined with the next item. And the next item is Go tests. Go tests will take all of your functions and it will generate table-driven unit tests for you. This is an absolute must. They're very easy to implement. They're very easy to manipulate. It's easy to read them and see what it is you're actually testing. It's easy to add new tests, remove redundant tests. It is a must-have library. And of course, finally, we've got the AWS SDK for Go as well. That's pretty much a given, really. We're going to need that for the Lambda handlers. We're going to need that for the DynamoDB stuff. We're going to need it to authenticate and so on and so forth. Pretty much an obvious one, really. Then under code, we've got dependency management. Again, that's a pretty obvious one. We're going to be using dep because it's pretty much becoming the stock standard official way of managing your libraries in Go. So next we've got HTTPS endpoints now. This is obviously a big topic. This is essentially the URLs that the client will be hitting, what users will be hitting from their phone or from the CLI. What we're going for to begin with is a simple CRUD application at this point in time. We just want to be able to create, read, update and delete records, CRUD, within a database. That's all we kind of want to be doing at this point in time. So we've got 6 endpoints. We've got account management, wish lists, wish list items, friends, invitations, and authentication. And within each of those endpoints, we have obviously various operations that can be performed. So with the accounts, wish lists, and wish list items, we've got create, update, delete, create, update, delete, create, update, delete. So pretty much just CRUD operations on those 3 types of items there. For friends, we want to be able to add and remove, and the same with invitations as well. We want to be able to add an invitation for a friend to come to us, and we want to be able to remove an invitation if we have a friend on a list that we no longer wish to be on that list. And then authentication, we want to be able to log in and log out. That's all we're going to be able to support at this point in time. So another massive topic within this entire project is going to be modules and DynamoDB tables. That's quite a big one. What I've gone for is to ensure that each module has a common interface. So it has, in this case, we've got an add, remove, an update, and a get method, which ensures that each module has some kind of base behavior which we can rely on. This also enables us to mock out each of the models too. So if we're testing one model and we need to interact with another model, we can mock out the other model, which means that we can fake how it behaves in order to just get an instant response back, such as a failure or a success, so that we can test the behavior of the model that we're writing tests for. So the models themselves, I'm not going to read out the actual Go code here, but the models themselves are pretty basic right now, but I believe that they have everything in place in order to enable us to get a basic application up and going. So what we have here, we have a login and a profile, two models, one called login, one called profile, and they essentially make up the account endpoint. Now, why a login and a profile? So if we look at the login type, we can see we've got a username and a password. But what does that mean? Why don't we put the username and the password on the profile? Well, long story short, what that actually enables you to do is separate the logins from the profiles, which means that a profile can have multiple logins. And another benefit of doing that well is you can actually change the username, which actually not many websites let you do. They don't actually let you change your username. Then we've got models for all the other things, all the obvious stuff. We've got a wish list, an item, we've got a friend, and we have an invitation, and they contain pretty much the things you would expect, plus a little bit extra. Possibly something's missing. Obviously feedback is welcome. So then again, the final biggest topic is the topic of deployment, because we're going to be deploying to Lambda, API gateway. We're probably going to be using things like S3 for backups and any kind of uploads that we end up supporting. We're going to be using CloudWatch logs for logging. We're possibly going to be using X-Ray for doing traces within the application. And so that's where we're going to be deploying in there, the kind of text we're going to be using. But how are we going to deploy there? Well, I'm a big fan of the serverless framework. That's where I'll be going. I'll be using the serverless framework. There are other options. There's Zapper, but it's Python only. There's Up. There's about 30 frameworks the last time I checked at the moment, which will enable you to push code to AWS and Google. However, we'll be using the serverless framework because it's just one file. It supports everything that we need at this point in time. And one final note on the point of deployment, I want to be able to support multiple environments. Now, serverless does obviously do this as well, but what I would like to do is I like to put the name of the environment on the end of the deployment itself. So that means you can create a test 1, a mic 1, an ops factory 7. You can do all kinds of multiple deployments without them interfering with each other. They're all fully isolated with their own endpoints. That's actually very useful going forward. So that's everything on the wiki page at this point in time. It is a living, breathing document. It will grow, it will shrink. We will add libraries, we will remove libraries, we'll introduce tech, we may remove tech. So all feedback is welcome. I need you to tell me what it is you want to see. I'll just go ahead and write the project, but it may not be what you want to see, so do give me feedback in the comments below. In the next video, we're going to be stubbing out all of the models themselves for the database, for the HTTP endpoints, etc. And then we're going to be writing unit tests for them. Hopefully this has been an interesting video. Hopefully you're as excited as I am. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like so that we know that we're doing a great job. And I'll see you next time.